If you're in the state of Florida and you're driving on any of the local roads or on the highways, you might come across a billboard that has written on it the phrase, "say gay," and you might look at it, be a little bit confused, and then just continue driving along your way. You might also be confused about Democratic politicians randomly saying gay as if that is doing anything in terms of anything at all. What the hell is this all about? And the answer to your question is, this is a troll. This is a troll crafted by Governor Ron DeSantis, and because the left has absolutely lost their minds, they cannot do anything but fall into this troll. But before you get stressed out, before you think the gays are under attack, before you think this bill isn't something that it's not, we're going to throw it over to the sponsor to talk about your stress. To support the sponsors, it supports the channel. Studies show that service animals can help alleviate some of the symptoms of anxiety and depression. A 2021 study in particular actually showed that the physical symptoms of stress and anxiety, heart rate, blood pressure, and hormones associated with stress actually reduce in the animal's presence. But getting a service animal up until this point has been very difficult. This is one of the reasons why we've made it incredibly easy for you guys. All you have to do is go to approvemypet.com and you can get yourself a service animal. And one of the great things about designating your animal as a service animal is that you're not legally obligated to pay those extra pet deposits. When you fly, you don't have to pay $200 to bring your animal with you on the plane consistently. And overall, it's just a better experience not only for your mental health, but for your pocketbook. Go to approvemypet.com, check it out for yourself, and enjoy a less stressful existence. So if you guys are unaware, if you're not hip to the minutia that goes on in the day-to-day politics in the United States of America, if you're not terminally online either as a profession or because you have no life, then you probably never heard of the Twitter account, the Libs of TikTok. And the reason I'm starting off with the Libs of TikTok is essentially this is the greatest Twitter account to ever exist, and they're actually driving legislation in the Republican Party, like the bill that we're going to talk about today. Because one of the things that are often featured on the account Libs of TikTok are videos from progressive teachers talking about how they want to indoctrinate students based on their racial justice narrative or their LGBTQ XXIIPXYZJJ agenda.
Okay, so during third period, we have announcements and they do the Pledge of Allegiance. I always tell my class, stand if you feel like it, don't stand if you feel like it, say the words if you want, don't have to say the words. So my class decided to stand but not say the words. Totally fine. Except for the fact that my room does not have a flag. It used to be there, but I took it down during COVID because it made me uncomfortable. And I packed it away and I don't know where, and I haven't found it yet. But my kid today goes, hey, it's kind of weird that we just stand and then, we say it to nothing. And I'm like, oh, well, I gotta find it. Like, I'm working on it. I got you. In the meantime, I tell this kid, we do have a flag in the class that you can pledge your allegiance to. And he looks around and he goes, oh, that one?
Now, before it was cool, if you guys can remember way back when, I used to do a series for the David Horowitz Freedom Center on leftist indoctrination in education. I was a trailblazer, but I was so far ahead of my time that everybody else is catching up to me and becoming way more successful about it, and I'm not bitter at it at all. I'm really not that bitter. Okay, I'm a little bit bitter. But here's the thing, this has caused a lot of outrage in the media. These clips are played on the Fox News, they're played in local news, and people are responding to these teachers clearly more interested in promoting a political ideology than actually educating the students. They're not interested in teaching kids how to think, they're definitely all about teaching kids what to think. So, obviously, there have been responses to these actions and to these videos, and to parents, by the way, who have had their kids home remotely when they actually encounter what the left is injecting into the curriculum. And one of these responses is a Florida bill, which they have entitled anti-grooming bill, but leftists have called the Don't Say Gay bill, which prohibits these discussions about sexual orientation and all these other leftist interpretations of gender identity and all that other nonsense in grades 3 and lower. And the reason I'm mentioning grades 3 and lower is because this bill is designed to be a troll for the left wing to get them to come out in favor of indoctrinating kids grade 3 and lower. The other thing that is behind this, and we have to be honest about what is driving this from the Republican side, is that Ron DeSantis is running for president. If you are unaware, Governor Ron DeSantis thinks he can be president of the United States. His star is on the rise, his national popularity is on the rise, and his popularity in the state of Florida is on the rise. And considering Florida is traditionally considered a swing state, this is huge news for the Republican Party because they basically have a candidate that encapsulates what they believe to be all the good qualities of Trump without all the baggage of a Donald Trump. This guy seems like he's a Trump with discipline, so obviously he is staking his claim, and this legislation, among many other pieces of legislation being pushed by Ron DeSantis, are not so much about the state of Florida, but they are about his national presidential prospects. So let's be honest about that. DeSantis is running for president, but the left is aiding and abetting him because they know he's running for president and they're trying to destroy him, and they're so terrible at it, they're basically falling for his troll.
Y'all, Florida man is at it again, and by Florida man, I mean Governor Ron DeSantis, and by it, I mean making life harder for LGBTQ kids.
The responses to this bill can only be described as stupid, melodramatic, and absolutely crazy in every possible way. And this even includes people who are totally not leftist, who totally didn't play the center for years while hiding their leftist views, like Philip DeFranco.
So what we're talking about is that the Florida Senate Education Committee just advanced legislation that critics have dubbed the Don't Say Gay bill, which would prevent school districts from, quote, encouraging discussion about sexual orientation or gender identity in primary grade levels or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students.
So I just want to point out that even though it's a little bit out of focus in the background, you can see that the article that Philip DeFranco, the totally neutral arbiter on the internet.com, the middleman who never takes a position on anything for basically his whole career unless it's the most obvious thing in the world, is quoting from an article that says Biden slams, so the perspective is from Joe Biden's perspective. And the excerpts from the bill are also featured in the article. Not featured in the article is the full text, or not quoted by Philip DeFranco is the full text, which allows DeFranco to make stupid assertions like the one that follows.
But, oh my god, what a surprise, the text of the bill does not define what would be considered age appropriate or developmentally appropriate.
So if you take the time to read this bill, which by the way, 7 pages long, and you don't get quotes mined from a leftist article that's mischaracterizing the bill like Philip DeFranco, the newsman, is doing, what you'll find out is that this bill is written with parents in mind. There is a concern that the schools are indoctrinating and they have their own agenda, so what this bill does is put the parents first and foremost out front and center in terms of making decisions for their children in terms of their education. It requires reporting about changes in the child's mental state, how they're identifying at school, etc., to the parents. And again, the way that this bill is structured, it applies to grades 3 and below, so pre-K through grades 3. I would think it wouldn't be unreasonable, even if you're the most pro-LGBTQ, XXIIP, XYZJJ population member, that you would be fine with parents knowing what's going on with their third grader or younger. But Philip DeFranco was very angry about this because he's like, oh no, they're going after the gays and it doesn't apply to what's age appropriate, and that's really crazy because that means it's very broad and all that, even though, again, this applies to grades 3 and below, so who really cares? A broad interpretation of what's age appropriate should be fine because, again, we're talking about grades 3 and below.
The lawmaker who proposed this measure has said that it would just keep the topics out of the curriculum, not classroom discussions. There's no mention of curriculum in the text. Also, other notable provisions in the legislation include allowing parents to sue schools if they think they're violating the law and if they don't inform parents about, quote, critical decisions affecting a student's mental, emotional, or physical health or well-being. But once again, not clearly defining or getting into specifics.
I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but this bill also requires parents to be notified for medical procedures so parents can consent or decline those medical procedures. I know, it's horrible, it's disgusting in any way. Look at this excerpt that I put in there. The school can't make healthcare choices for the parents. Again, this is all stuff that should go without saying, but it just goes to show you how crazy some of the schools have gotten, not only in the state of Florida, but in the state of our nation, and how crazy the left is to react so angrily to a bill like this.
So other notable provisions in the legislation include allowing parents to sue schools if they think they're violating the law and if they don't inform parents about, quote, critical decisions affecting a student's mental, emotional, or physical health or well-being.
Again, it doesn't get into specifics in the article that you're referencing, but yeah, you should be able to sue the school for not informing you, seeking out your informed consent when it comes to medical procedures, which is what this pertains to. On top of that, again, it does say sexual orientation. That's what they're trying to prohibit from being discussed in certain grade levels. I only had to go to page 1 in order to get this. The excerpts that Philip DeFranco is reading from actually come after the portions of the bill that I'm talking about, but whatever, no big deal, don't worry about it. Philip DeFranco's got you covered with his big, gigantic virtue signal.
And as one Democratic senator pointed out, critical decisions could be something as basic as a kid being served a vegetarian lunch without their parents okay.
I like how Philip DeFranco quotes a Democratic state senator as if it is gospel. He doesn't think maybe this person opposed to the bill might be interested in mischaracterizing this bill from this article that I got that is mischaracterizing this bill. Also, the example given about how, oh, it's so broad, it could even mean a vegetarian meal. First of all, the law says medical procedures is one of the examples. You should get the consent from the parent before you start giving medical procedures to the students, especially students grades 3 and below. On top of that, you probably should consult the parents before serving the child certain meals. All these kids got crazy allergies, not to mention all the special eating habits that are associated with various religious groups. I had friends when I went to school that were Muslim. They could not eat meat that was not halal. Obviously, the parents let the school know this, but if you changed up the meal or you tried to serve them something directly that went against their faith, and they had the pressure from their classmates to just eat what everything else was served to them, you would end up in situations where kids' religious beliefs or their families' religious beliefs were not being respected in the public schools. I've actually seen this happen, and I've seen the fallout of this for the teachers. So by the way, the example of a vegetarian meal, totally legitimate that you would consult the parent for, not just for religious concerns, but also for allergy concerns.
But still, despite the very obvious issues with this bill, it was advanced after DeSantis voiced his support for the move on Monday, saying schools need to be teaching kids to read, to write, they need to teach them science, history, we need more civics and understanding the US Constitution, what makes our country unique, all those basic stuff. Yeah. All those basic stuff, like figuring out how a fucking sentence works, Ron.
So after Philip DeFranco makes fun of Ron DeSantis' quote, and the reason I'm emphasizing the word quote is because you can actually see dashes in this alleged quote, so what you're actually seeing is something that is cut up, meant to make Ron DeSantis look bad, always a red flag, by the way. He then talks about how all these Democratic and left-leaning organizations that hate Ron DeSantis are opposed to this. Again, not giving you the other side of this, just giving you how bad Ron DeSantis is. Ron DeSantis bad.
How thoughtful of him to take a break from villainizing masks and go back to old school conservative values.
Did I mention Ron DeSantis said something bad about masks once?
You know, kind of taking the feelings and the thinking there. It's why you had people like Chasten Buttigieg, the husband of Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, tweeting last month that this bill will kill kids. Noting that another Trevor Project survey found that 42% of LGBTQ youth seriously considered attempting suicide last year.
And this is the final nail in the coffin for this Philip DeFranco segment, which is a perfect example of the left's insane reaction to this legislation, which again just says, hey, let's not teach third graders to pre-K about sexual orientation and gender identity. And if there is a situation with a medical procedure or a change in the child's mental state, inform the parent before you, as a teacher who works for the government, make decisions as if you're a parent. And now we've gotten to the point where Philip DeFranco's like, people are going to die. Let me quote you some numbers about LGBTQ XXIP youth and their mental distress, which obviously skews heavily towards teenagers because we're talking about the most hormonal period in a teenager's life, and then say that DeSantis is going to kill people by not letting you discuss this with third graders. Again, Philip DeFranco doesn't even mention it, doesn't talk about it, didn't read the bill because he's lazy. It's only 7 pages long in the version that I found. I've heard that other versions were shorter, but this was all clear in the bill originally. But the panic continues, the billboards continue, the freak out continues, and this law likely gonna get signed. It's gonna be law, and people aren't even gonna notice it because you shouldn't notice it because you shouldn't have been teaching third graders and lower about these issues. You should just let them be kids.
Showing up to teach 4th grade the day after the Don't Say Gay bill passes through the Florida House.
Now, overall, I don't really have all that much more to say about this story, other than you don't have to walk into every single trap. If you think it's too good to be true, if you think a story is too crazy and the person you're talking about is too evil to be doing this and it's insane, then likely you're misreading it, because people aren't that evil, but sometimes people occasionally are that clever. I can't even give DeSantis a lot of praise for this bill, because this is basic stuff. And the reason he's doing this, and the reason this bill was set up, was to trap Democrats, and it was to boost his presidential prospects. Again, I'm not in favor of indoctrination of young kids. I did an entire series advocating for a way to prevent this in the public schools, but I can't ignore the fact that this is clearly about DeSantis' national presidential prospects more than the schools. That's just how it is. We've seen this indoctrination go past grade 3, and while I'm happy that grade 3 down to pre-K won't be indoctrinated in this manner, that doesn't mean there are not going to be incidents of the racial stuff and all these other problems that are happening in the schools. And I would love for DeSantis to actually do something with some teeth that would actually cost him something, rather than just lay traps to own the left. While that is fun, while I do think DeSantis is doing a great job in Florida, and I'm not going to knock him because he's taken stands against the national media, this is him running for president. This is all 4 moments like the one that he had with the press right here that I'm going to show you.
Parental rights and education, what critics call the Don't Say Gay bill, is on the Senate floor.
Does it say that in the bill?
Know that you support.
Does it say that in the bill?
I'm asking you
to tell me what's in the bill, because you are pushing false narratives. It doesn't matter what critics say.
Hold on. It says it bans classroom instruction on sexual identity and gender orientation.
For who?
For
grades pre-K through 3. So 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds. And the idea that you wouldn't be honest about that and tell people what it actually says, it's why people don't trust people like you, because you peddle false narratives. And so we disabuse you of those narratives. And we're going to make sure that parents are able to send their kid to kindergarten without having some of this stuff injected into their school curriculum.
It's good stuff, but it's not really heavy in substance. We all know the media lie. We all know the left is stupid, so laying a trap for the lying media and the stupid left is the easiest thing in the world to do. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like the video, you can show me by leaving a like. You can subscribe for more content. You can follow me on all my social medias. You can support me via the support links in the description box. This has been me talking about DeSantis, basically setting himself up for an easy layup. Till next time.